Please join me in welcoming Mark to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now descending into Wellington International Airport. Please ensure you have the customs documentations ready to produce. As you'll be aware, under the terms of the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement, you will need to produce sales receipts for every branded item in your possession, as well as certified licenses and copyright certificates for your software and MP3 files. Please also refer to the Permitted Pharmaceuticals booklet and determine which of the medicines you might be carrying which are permitted in New Zealand. Any non-permitted medicines are declared counterfeit and should be disposed of in the bins provided. I don't know what's in the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement, but then I don't know what isn't. I hope the pilot statement would be hyperbole. I hope it would be, but until I have some definite text in front of me, I just don't know, and that scares me a lot. This is one of the most secretive international agreements I've ever seen, outside of nuclear arms proliferation treaties and espionage agreements. It's called the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement, but I can't see anything being traded. I can't see how going overboard on copyright infringement on the internet has anything to do with counterfeit. It's being negotiated by non-elected officials in a boys' club of nations hoping for a free trade agreement with the USA. It's being negotiated in secret because they don't want the public that they theoretically serve to know what they're agreeing with each other on our behalf. They're happy to share this information with private industry, which stands to gain from this agreement, but not from the people who pay their salaries. And when questioned about it, they cite a confidentiality agreement they all made, which somehow transcends domestic open legislation. They all say they want to be transparent. It's the other guys. But at least the USA publicly cites national security. Our government just says, we can't tell you because we made an agreement that we won't. In private, the US trade representative says, if we opened it up, people would walk away. We've had a few leaks and there's some scary stuff in there, 3 strikes. Happening around the world. Have a look at the free trade agreement Korea signed with the US, because that's an example of what is in there. But until we see a draft text, we don't know. But I want to focus on one aspect of it, which is pharmaceuticals. In the US, a counterfeit drug can simply be one that doesn't have FDA approval. It doesn't need to be a copy of a branded drug. It can be quite legitimate drug in a neighbouring country like Canada. But once you bring it across the border, it's counterfeit and subject to enforcement. It's one thing to block fake drugs that pretend to be useful or something they're not. It's quite another to implement policies designed solely to protect companies' bottom lines from strong competition. Oh, we now move on to the other side. This has huge implications for New Zealand with Pharmac and our method of national drug purchasing. In New Zealand, Pharmac subsidises drug purchasing, getting the lowest prices out of the big companies by threatening to go with a competitor or a generic replacement drug. Not all drugs are subsidised. If you want a branded drug like Arapax or paroxetine, rather than a branded drug, rather than a generic subsidised brand, you can buy it, but at its full cost. And that's an example of what the cost is. Around $93 US for 20 capsules. Pharmac reported the change of drug from Arapax to generic would save around $45 million that could be spent on other drugs. That's about $1,000 for each user of Arapax at the time of the change. And that's just one drug. There are thousands on the Pharmac schedule. We're talking billions here that patients would have to find in order to stay healthy. Big Pharma hates Pharmac. It hates anything that prevents them screwing as much cash out of consumers as possible. And John Key's already stated that when we start negotiating an FTA with the US, Pharmac will be open for discussion. According to what we know about Big Pharma and Pharmac, they'd love nothing better than to have Pharmac abolished and New Zealand patients pay full price for their drugs the way they do in the US. And that's why those Canadian drugs are classified as counterfeit, to make it easier for the big companies not to have to face competition. If, as we suspect, the counterfeit portion of the agreement is dealing mainly with drugs, it gives the companies a big stick to beat Pharmac with. But this could be Chicken Little territory. We don't know whether the sky is falling or whether it's just a little rain. They won't tell us. They who work for us, who are paid by us, and who are accountable to us, can't tell us just what part of their sovereignty they're negotiating away. It's time to stand up and be counted. In New Zealand, April, Wellington will be hosting the next round of the ACTA negotiations, and we'll be protesting those negotiations. And we believe you should too. At this moment, it's not even on the radar of a lot of MPs. There are some exceptions. Claire Curran and Materia Turai come to mind. But we aim to get it up on their radar. So write to your MP, buttonhole them at the next school fair, email them and ask them what they're doing to safeguard your future. And as a small plug, keep your eye on acta.net.nz, where a coalition of organisations will be posting what we know and what we're doing. Thank you.